Welcome to the MD Edge Daily News for Friday, August 3rd. I'm Nick Andrews.
And I'm Mary Ellen Schneider. Today, the Fitbit Flex could be a useful tool for MS patients.
Also today, even moderate alcohol use is bad in non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
And later, there's evidence for meningococcal B vaccination in children with rare diseases.
But we begin today with some bad news on opioids. Over the last decade, opioid use has not significantly declined despite efforts to educate physicians about the risk of abuse. A retrospective cohort study published in the BMJ found one big driver of the sustained use. More than half of disabled Medicare beneficiaries are using opioids each year. The analysis, which looked at claims data from 48 million individuals, found that more than a quarter of Medicare-aged patients used opioids during the study period, as well as 14% of commercially insured patients. The highest prevalence of opioid use was among commercially insured patients of age 45 to 54. But the group with the greatest increased use in the study period was the disabled Medicare group, where both the prevalence and average daily dose increased over the last decade. Dr. Molly Jeffrey of the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, led the study. She says the opioid use in the disabled Medicare population is likely reflective of their high burden of illness. She also advises both physicians and patients to take care. If long-term opioid use is not going to improve the ability to function, then other treatments should be considered.
A new study shows that the Fitbit Flex is a useful and feasible way to measure average daily steps for patients with multiple sclerosis. The commercially available device was evaluated in a prospective one-year study by researchers at the University of California, San Francisco. The study included 61 adults with relapsing MS and 35 with progressive MS. All were able to walk at least 2 minutes at baseline. Patients wore their Fitbits daily for more than a year. Patients were evaluated at baseline and at the 1-year mark on the Expanded Disability Status Scale and the Timed 25-Foot Walk Test. Patients also reported outcomes throughout the study. Overall, 82% of participants used the device and completed follow-up. Use of the Fitbit didn't result in more steps. In fact, patients had fewer steps at the end of the study, but researchers found that the device provided useful clinical insights that were missing from standard disability scales. For instance, the researchers found a significant association between decreasing steps and worsening clinic-based and patient-reported outcomes. But a drop in steps occurred even when disability levels, measured by standard scales, remained stable. That means step data may be a more sensitive and granular outcome measure that could help target clinical interventions. The research was presented at the annual meeting of the American Academy of Neurology.
Even moderate alcohol intake leads to poorer outcomes in non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Those are the findings from a longitudinal cohort study published in Clinical Gastroenterology and Hepatology. The study of 285 patients compared outcomes between those who reported having up to 2 drinks a day and non-drinkers. Overall, the moderate drinkers had significantly less improvement in steatosis and significantly lower odds of resolution of non-alcohol steatohepatitis compared with non-drinkers. Moderate drinkers also had significantly less improvement of their AST levels. It's important to look at the impact of drinking, because more than 1 in 3 adults in the U.S. has non-alcohol fatty liver disease, and about 2/3 drink alcohol, almost always in moderation. Dr. Viral Ajmera of the University of California, San Diego led the study. Dr. Ajmera says that for some patients with advanced severity, it may make sense to abstain from alcohol. Clinicians should consider the spectrum of disease and especially non-alcoholic steatohepatitis when making recommendations about drinking.
And finally today, A new study from researchers in Europe supports the U.S. guidelines to give meningococcal B vaccine to children with 3 rare conditions that make them susceptible to infection. U.S. guidelines advise use of the vaccine for adolescents and adults considered at special risk, including those with terminal chain complement deficiencies, those who take eculizumab, as well as patients with asplenia and splenic dysfunction. In a study published in Pediatrics, researchers found that the 4C Men-B vaccine strength was similar in healthy children and those with asplenia and splenic dysfunction. The vaccine may be weaker in children with complement deficiency, but it was not clear whether it was less effective. The researchers recommend that children with complement deficiency also receive antibiotic prophylaxis with the vaccine. The open-label Phase 3b study included 239 children aged 2 to 17. They were given 2 doses of the vaccine 2 months apart. 40 children in the study had complement deficiency, 112 had asplenia or splenic dysfunction, and 87 children were part of a control group that also received the vaccine. And that concludes the Friday edition of the Daily News. You can find more information about meningococcal B vaccine and our other stories in the podcast description. For MD Edge, I'm Mary Ellen Schneider.
And I'm Nick Andrews. The MD Edge CardioCast is all new today. You can find the CardioCast and the Daily News wherever podcasts are found.